So I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but I'm ready to talk about it. I speak about it here and there on some interviews that I do, but the statistics are showing, Black men, Black women are single longer, getting older, marrying less. It's tragic. And I am a Black love or else person. Let's say that. I'm putting that out there. I love Black men. I love African men. And so while, my relationship, my former relationship didn't work out. I definitely thought it was. It didn't. Moved on. Have healed since. And still am very much committed to having a family centered in African culture, having African children, raising African children. Dating in Africa has been a trip, right? And a good trip, like a beautiful, beautiful healing experience for me. And I want to talk about my experience dating. And I know many of y'all have asked and you want to know. And yes, I am dating. I also want to say a disclaimer. My kids are in the background, so there's some background noise, so bear with me. But also, I want to share a disclaimer. Oops, I just hit the camera. That I recognize that dating is a Western concept. Courting is an African and let's say Eastern concept. And so while dating isn't probably looked highly upon, I'm learning, right? And so I'm doing what I feel familiar with. To me, let me clarify what dating means. Dating means to me, meeting someone who shows interest and spending time with them in public, right? So that's dating. We may have communication through text message or phone calls, but when we are dating, we're simply getting to know each other in public. That's what that means. There is no physical exchange, no fluidly exchange. That is not dating. That is intimate relationships, right? So in this video, I'm talking about dating in Africa, dating in Tanzania, and also dating in South Africa. And so while I recognize that no man is the same, whether they're here on the continent or in the US, right? There are men that have different values, that have different experiences, different levels of spiritual awareness. All of these things play a part in how a person presents themselves in the dating experience. And so never will I say that all men are the same anywhere, right? So all African men are the same. And the men that I have met here in Tanzania and South Africa have been Tanzanians, Nigerian, Gabon, I don't know if it's Gabonese, but from Gabon, and South Africa. And even South Africa, you have all of the different, Zulu, Xhosa, Tswani, colored. There's some more, right? There's some more. I did not speak on you because you're not important. I'm not saying that. I'm not speaking on you because you are not important. I'm not speaking on you because I probably haven't met somebody that was communicating that they are from those three, right? So that's my disclaimer saying what? Please respect it. Oh, let me introduce myself. So welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience moving, living, and doing business here on the continent of Africa. I launched a membership where I'll speak more in depth about my experience, my personal experiences, with people that are really interested in understanding and really want to know. But in this video, I'm going to talk about my experience dating and the beautiful experience that I am having. In the background, you hear my 4-year-old daughter who is singing and playing in her joyous energy and her childlike energy. I will allow it, although it may deter me a little bit from my notes. I do keep notes. And for those that are not new here to the family, I keep my notes, and you also know that I have some children that play around and make a little noise. So welcome back to the channel. Thank you for all of your support and your love. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. So yeah, let's get into it. You know, this has been a beautiful experience for me. I want to also say that I had an opportunity to heal coming here to the continent. I had an opportunity to invest in myself, love on myself, spend time with myself, heal myself, and really understand what my values were, what I loved about myself, what I needed to work on. You know, I think we're operating in the West at such high levels of stress and dysfunction that it is absolutely taking hold of our divine femininity and our divine masculinity and what it means to work together in relationship. And I am, you know, guilty of that. I was guilty of that and didn't really have an opportunity to work on myself, my personal and professional development until towards the end, where everybody was sitting down and having to figure it out. And if they decided to, they did. If they didn't, well, they didn't. But this environment in Dar es Salaam, where I had love, I had support, I had peace, I felt safe, it allowed me to really, you know, nurture myself, reflect, and step into my divine femininity. And I hear a lot of people speak like, well, shouldn't women naturally be that way? And I think we're all wondering that question, right? But because of years, centuries of, you know, traumatic experiences, systemic, you know, things, right? Like, that's just not the case. And while I don't consider it an excuse, I recognize that it is so. And I also recognize that with the access of information and a spiritual calling, I and so many other people have what they need to heal and repair these things that are ultimately making it difficult for us to partner. And once I did that work, and I'm still doing the work because healing is not a destination, it's a journey, I began to open myself up to masculine energy, divine masculine energy. I began to quickly identify toxic energy and men that didn't know how to balance that feminine and masculine, and see it very clearly and really allow in some of the best masculine energy in my life. So in this video, I want to talk about that, right? I'm going to talk about the experience, and not necessarily all of that, but my experience. And so that shift initially was required of me. That work was required of me. It was irresponsible for me to assume that all men would be like my last relationship. And I also knew that that wasn't the case because I had always attracted good men into my life. And so while I won't say that he wasn't a good man, I just say I was not able to be in my fullness because I had not required a level of fullness for myself, right? So that ultimately, you know, that lack of boundaries, that lack of self-awareness and self-love just allowed in all the nonsense. And I was able to heal that here. So I want to put that there. The next thing that I noticed, just even in being here in Dar es Salaam and being here on the continent, African men confidence is unmatched. Like a very masculine African man that is walking in their natural masculinity, they're confident, right? There are structural things here on the continent, and I don't want to dismiss that, right? But I will say, when you grow up and you are raised in your culture, you are raised speaking your language, you are raised practicing a spirituality that is closer to yourself, or that allows you to be in your fullness of self, your self-confidence is unmatched. You aren't aspiring to be like someone else. And my experience in the US, when I look at my past, those aspirations to be like those that have wealth were not like African men, right? It wasn't aspiring to be more family-centered or more loving of the divine feminine. It was to have money, to have things, which aren't African, right? Like family is so important. Children are so important. The woman, the mother is so important here in the continent. So those values are not the same values. And operating in that culture just allows for this just divine masculinity, this confidence, this energy that, you just can't deny. It's undeniable. And it's key in what it meant for me to identify what I was looking for, what I'm looking for in a partner. The next thing is African men are inherently providers. So what I've learned here, right? If a man does not financially take care of or provide for his child, it's somewhat illegal, right? Like it is punishable. That is a punishable offense in many African countries. Here in Tanzania, absolutely, I've heard, maybe not as much now, but I've heard young men in their 20s saying if they were to, have a child out of wedlock or have a child and not support it, it is a punishable offense. I'm learning a little bit more about what that looks like in South Africa, but it is just simply not allowed. Hearing that a man just leaves and abandons his children, while it happens for sure, it is like totally taboo and punishable. And people that value their they value their reputation, like they guard that. So they are providers by nature. Even in the dating, like my early dating of a Tanzanian man, he would come to my home with fruits and like go to the market and like just bring fruits and vegetables like to come pick me up for dinner. Ask me what the kids would like. And that's another thing that I'll get into, but they're naturally providers and protectors. It is something that is inherent. It's not something that needs to be taught, right? Many of them also grew up with communities of men around that were giving them those examples. And again, while I'm aware of the historical oppression and systematic work that has been done to remove that from the African American culture, the resource of that, the knowledge of that is available. It's not only available here on the continent, but if you look at African-centered content, if you look at African-centered, readings or professors or lecturers or thought leaders, it's accessible. You can discover it. It's merely the baseline. Providing and protecting as a man is the baseline of what manhood looks like in African countries. Again, is it necessarily all the way around working in every country? And is Western influence taking hold of some of these men? Yes, it is. But those are not the men that you're seeing that are fruitful, that are prosperous, that are abundant, right? So, yeah. That provider, protector, masculine energy. Okay, let's just, yes. So the next thing getting into that is children. Anytime I would ever have a conversation with a man, how are you? How are the children? Like initially, that's like their first statement. How are you? How are the children? And I didn't really date after, I didn't date in the US, like after coming out of my last relationship. So I can't really say whether or not men do that, but leave me a note in the comments. Sis, if you were a mother, divorced, say, and going into new relationships, was that something that was immediately like mentioned by the gentleman that you were dating? Oftentimes in the US, I talk about, well, don't talk about being a mother. Don't talk about your kids on the first date. That's not for the first date. No, I'm a mother. It is one of the things that I'm most proud of. My ability to nurture and bring life into this world is a bag. Like, that is my superpower. So that is something that is who I am, that is who I embody, and it is a value. And so to be on the receiving end of a man and men that actually see that and honor that is everything. Okay? And so how my children are embraced and acknowledged in this dating space and accepted and provided for and protected and cared for, even at the dating level, like, yes. Yes, I love that. So the next thing is, I can share my story and be embraced for my success, but it's not expected. So when you have like these conversations in the West of like, well, what is she bringing to the table? And like, what's the woman where I'm bringing all of these things? While I recognize that, everybody has their interests, like they like what they like, the requirement of a woman having to be anything more than she is, right, is it's not my vibe, right? Like I always used to feel like I had to come with my resume in the dating space even before children. I had to come with, this is where I went to school, this is what I study, this is what I do, this is where I live. And these things, oftentimes would attract people that mutually reflected that. I'd say in the worst case scenario, attracted, people that were interested in benefiting from that. But here it's not expected, right? It's not about what I do, my credentials. Even when I share that, I kind of feel like a little bit uncomfortable because it's not even asked. Like, I think it's acknowledged, my ambition, my intellect, my courage. Like these things are acknowledged, but it's not like required. I don't feel like I need to prove myself or bring things to the table in my dating experience here. And that is something that I definitely found distinctively different. So those are the things. And I'm not gonna speak about what African man is what, and but I'd say that I've dated, several different African men and got to know all of them differently. And I'm not in communication with all of them, anymore, but I have found just a beautiful correlation in the things that I talked about that I didn't necessarily find in my dating experience in the US. And it's been beautiful. It has been beautiful. I value African men. I value African men who have strong values around their Africanness. And I'm here for it. So if you, as a woman, have an interest in dating and you want to talk more about some of your questions, leave them below. If I can answer, I will. I am no dating and relationship expert, but I have learned that it has more to do with me than it has to do with them. And in a culture that is more connected to my values, I'm finding more success in partnership, and so trying to eliminate your view from red flags or compromise on things that are inherently important to you doesn't lead to long-term, sustainability of partnership. And being closer to a culture that mirrors my inherent values makes me feel a lot more confident in my ability to find partnership here on the continent. So I hope that was valuable for my ladies out there that have an interest in dating or are currently dating here on the continent, or have an interest in moving to the continent because they see that it's just not happening for them in that way in the US. Listen, I'm not saying, move for a man, but I do think that if you're interested in living in a place that is matching your values and you're seeing that that's not the case in the US, in many ways, go to where you're treated best. Go to where you feel valued. Go to where you feel more accepted. Go to where you feel you can thrive more. That doesn't necessarily mean it's exclusively for a man. In my case, it's for the safety of my children. It's for the future of business. It's for the future of sustainability, lifestyle. It's for my future of living. Quite frankly, I don't want to be ducking zooming pieces of metal everywhere, or feeling like I need to walk into a mall strapped just to protect myself and my children, right? But also, partnership is really important to me, and being with somebody that matches my values is the only thing that is acceptable at this place in my life. So I hope that was valuable for you. If you'd like to connect with me and support you on your journey to Africa, your relocation to Africa, I'd love to work with you. I'd say 80% of the people that I work with are women, mothers, divorcees, single moms that are looking to start over. I'd love to share in more depth my experience with you and how I can support you along the way. Until the next time, I'll see you soon.